For the record, I originally downloaded this game because I wanted a Steam background that was black and white. I already owned the game and had the Steam points, but Steam's policy that you need to play 2 hours of a game before being able to access rewards, or, being able to buy the background, forced my aesthetic-addicted integrity to confront a question I had been dodging. What was this game I had bought so long ago and never played? What story had been sitting there in silence waiting to be heard? What I found was not what I expected. What I found was the Moon Silver. There's a certain kind of silence that doesn't just feel empty. It feels watchful. You'll know that silence as soon as you step into the world of the Moon Silver. You awaken not with a cutscene, but with a breath. Cold wind, a cracked, weathered landscape. No instructions, no icons, just the sound of your own movement, and the distant whisper of a story that has already ended long before you ever arrived. David Szymanski is not a household name for games like this. His later works, particularly the loud, blood-soaked Dusk, made him beloved in the boomer shooter revival scene, but this is something entirely different. His first work, a lo-fi literary, almost devotional project. A game that leans into quiet more than action, suggestion than spectacle. And I think that's what kind of makes it nice. As you begin the Moon Silver, you'll find yourself on a desolate island. The building's broken, the world feels post-human, though candles and fires still burn. Something was here, and something happened. You're not told to explore, but your feet naturally will begin to wander, and a voice begins to whisper, triggered not by cutscenes, but by movement, proximity, presence, and fragments from the architecture of a mystery that is emotional, spiritual, and deeply personal. This isn't just exploration anymore, it's investigation, not of a crime, but of a soul. To talk about the gameplay, if you're expecting guns, puzzles, or skill-based challenges, I would look at the other catalog of games made by Dave. The Moon Silver doesn't ask you to play in the traditional sense, merely to observe, to feel, to listen. It belongs to that often dismissed category of walking simulators, a term usually wielded as critique. Here I feel the term is reborn as something dignified and deliberate. You walk a lot, you do walk a lot. And in that walking, you do uncover and unravel and slowly complete the story of the game. The flashlight mechanic, the flashlight being your best friend, curious as it is, creates a strange tension. There are no monsters, no threats lurking behind the shadows, and yet the way the light flickers out after mere moments feels oddly ominous. Maybe the flashlight isn't meant to protect you, but it's meant to remind you that you can't be protected from the past and from yourself. Keys are found, doors are open, there is no inventory. These aren't puzzles to be solved, but permissions to continue. And as you traverse a church, a storm shelter, an abandoned home, narration gently wraps around you like fog, revealing glimpses of a broken history, told through first-person prose as delicate as poetry. What begins as a slow walk across barren ground becomes something else entirely. A walk across memory, and the further you go, the heavier your footsteps become. There is gameplay in the loose sense, but the real game is eternal. What are you noticing? What are you piecing together? The world never stops to explain itself. You must be present, patient, and open to what it is offering. At its core, the Moon Silver is not just a walking simulator. It's a walking visual novel. But instead of text boxes and character sprites, its sentences are scattered like ashes on the wind. Instead of clear dialogue and branching choices, it offers fragmentary thoughts, disjointed memories, and scattered journals, and from that, you must assemble a narrative of surprising depth and sorrow. The story follows 4 characters: Abel, Daniel, Ellie, and Isa, living on what appears to be a post-apocalyptic island. The land is dying, the sea is rising, and in the face of that despair, a man named Hector founded a religion. He claimed to have saved his followers from a demon using a relic called the Moon Silver. Roll credits. But the further you read, the clearer it becomes this isn't a tale of divine salvation. It's a lie, told to give shape to hope, to mask despair, to hold off the collapse of meaning. But even Hector falters. In secret, he writes scripture that suggests the demon is not evil, but merciful, that death might be better than this fading world. His followers are fragile, and when these texts are discovered, the damage can't really be undone, especially not for our protagonist, Abel. What unfolds is an emotional collapse disguised as a horror story. An affair between Ellie and both Daniel and Abel brings the group's fragile peace to its end. Abel's writings begin to reflect a fracture within him, a sin or a second self. He kills Ellie, then Daniel, then confesses to Isa, and Isa, devoted to the religion of Hector, once crafted by him, cannot live with the destruction of its sacred truth, and she takes her own life. And Abel, now alone, emptied, returns to the mountain to confront what he has become. There are no jump scares, no monsters, no supernatural events, but the dread is thick because the horror here is psychological, more spiritual. The demon was always inside Abel. The Moon Silver, now broken and lost, was the only thing keeping it at bay. In the final moments, you walk toward a light, the narration fades, you reach it. It's not a victory, but an acceptance. Abel dies, maybe of the cold, maybe of guilt, but there is a sense of closure. Not in the traditional narrative sense, but in the internal emotional sense. You are left with a silence and a full heart. The Moon Silver will not be remembered as a blockbuster. It doesn't try to be. But it will be remembered by those who value story over spectacle, emotion over mechanics, meaning over motion. It's a short indie game, an hour, maybe less. It took me 30 minutes. But it lingers. It asks big questions quietly. What does hope look like when the world ends? What becomes of faith when its founder loses it? What remains when guilt has hollowed out of a man completely? This was an experiment, but it was also an elegy, and a eulogy, a love letter to the power of atmosphere, narrative, and restraint. Again, David's future games would become louder, faster, more kinetic, but the seeds of his brilliance were here, in this cold, sad, gentle story. It's not a game for everyone, but for those who are willing to listen, not just play, it will speak volumes.